You've just finished making a card, but what do you do with all the extras? And what about when you get into a background making mode or on a coloring kick? So much good stuff for future cards, but do you pull it back out or does it get sucked into a black hole type scrap drawer? If I'm ever going to use my leftovers, my black hole scrap drawer needs a massive overhaul. Let's see what we can do. So glad you're here. I'm Carrie at Ink Revival, and I'm all about helping you see what you and your stash can do. A huge part of using your stash is knowing what you actually have. And when I look at this leftover drawer, I have no idea what's in there. This drawer did start out with a plan, sentiments in one square, die-cut images in another, and so on, but it was way too easy to mix together and get kind of lazy just throwing things in the drawer. Plus, little hands were dipping in here too. You know, the mess never got to my son though, and that'd be an approach you could take, kind of like a grab bag and make a card with whatever you get. But I desperately want some actual organization here. Plus, I've got all these big pieces like backgrounds or scraps of paper that never really even had a home. So they're just tucked around my room, and I do not like when I come across the piles. It's in the way of whatever I'm trying to do, and it's so not inspiring to use. First things first, I only want to keep usable scraps. So I'm giving myself permission to get rid of the teeny scraps. And from now on, I'm really gonna try to toss the teeny stuff right away. We'll see how that goes. I'm also going to try to die cut strategically when I can. Spend a little extra time positioning the die in paper so I end up with usable scraps. Like if I'm cutting a rectangle, I'll center it so I get a frame as my scrap. Or if I'm die cutting multiple sentiments to stack for dimension, I can just line them each up and I'll get an awesome negative space element to save for another card. Next up is clutter. These drawers, oh my goodness. So I consider myself a fairly neat person, but I am notorious for being a really messy drawer person. They always start out organized and then So I'm gonna ditch the drawer entirely and make a more accessible, organized scrap stash. And I've got the perfect spot for it. A metal plumbing access door. I got these baskets that have magnets on the back, and I'm going to group them all together here to make a hanging scrap stash. And I even got a little one to hold my extra die cut strips. I'm excited to have the scraps super accessible like this, but also not take up space on my desk. Plus, no drawers. You probably don't have a handy magnetic access door, but if you want to do something similar, you can attach a magnetic strip to your wall or use a pegboard type system to hang your scrap baskets. Or keep it simple and just use a bin or basket to hold the scraps, like how a lot of us store stamps and dies. It's time to deal with the biggest issue, actually finding things. It's really been too messy in here to ever bother looking for a specific thing, but I think I'd use my scraps and leftovers a lot more if I could actually find what I needed. Like if I'm making a birthday card or thank you card, being able to see my options for each really easily. Now I did debate storing the leftovers in the back of whatever stamp or die set it was made from, but I think keeping it all together and out in the open is going to get me using it more. Which way do you think would work best for you? Or do you have a completely different scrap system you love? Come tell us in the comments. To make my scraps and leftovers easier to find, I'm going to divide them up big time. But this is the part I've been most looking forward to. Diving in here, seeing what I even have, and picking some categories as I go. And I did learn something from my black hole drawer experience. Print category labels this time. I'm going to use the same 6x6 inch storage bags that I store my background stamps in to stay organized. Cut off the sealable top, add a label, and drop in a group. I think it was last month that I already prepped and stored my colored paper scraps just the same way. Of course, to fit in the bags, I've been quartering the full sheet. This setup has been working so well. I love how easy they are to get to, and I'm reaching for them first every time now. There's no more paper scrap mess to purposely avoid. And that brings up the issue of actually using the leftovers and scraps. I've got two plans for myself. One is checking in here when I start making a card, or at least sometime while I'm making, just to see if anything might work. And the other plan is making cards fully from my scrap stash options. There's a lot of benefits to making with a scrap stash. It's of course a huge time saver. Like, I generally wouldn't even color an image if I only had 20 or 30 minutes to make. But if I take advantage of coloring on the go or in little pockets of time during my day, I could have all sorts of colored images to use on my 20-minute cards. And how about cleanup? Using your scrap stash is amazing for that. Sometimes I do not want to end up with 47 supplies strewn across my desk to clean up. Most of the time, sure, a mess is worth it, but some days, that'd be a scrap stash day. Making with it is also cost effective. It gets you using the things you invested not just money into, but also your time. And I love seeing all the unplanned images and elements side by side. It gives me new ideas for designs and pairings I might have never thought to do. Plus, I'm super visual, so designing a card by shuffling the actual pieces around is a really enjoyable way to make. With a little attention, my scrap stash is pure creative gold now, and it's so funny that I've just been avoiding it all these years. But I kind of think we've all got supplies we could give a little more attention to and turn it into this creative gold. Even just looking at your supplies with a different perspective is going to help you do way more with them than they were ever meant to do. I've got a video for you right here with 3 new ways to look at those supplies. I'll see you there.